And all the time I knew Kurt, he never ever talked about having ambition to be a rock star. He never predicted that he was going to be a big rock star.
I didn't think it would be with music. I thought it would be with art. He could have made it with art. He was that talented at drawing.
There were times, I think, when he felt satisfied when he'd written a song and people liked it and it went to the top of the charts. But I don't know that he ever enjoyed life. I mean, I think there is a pall of depression that hangs over most of Kurt's life.
In 1991, Nirvana exploded onto the world stage with the single Smells Like Teen Spirit and album Nevermind. The band became an instant household name, and their enigmatic frontman, Kurt Cobain, became the face of the new Seattle grunge scene. This is the story of Kurt Cobain, a man obsessed by his past and pinned to the memories of a difficult childhood. The early years of an unlikely rock icon. Donald Cobain was born on the 20th of February 1967 in Grays Harbor Community Hospital, overlooking the northwest town of Aberdeen, a town that Cobain would call home for most of his life.
Well, one of the interesting things about Aberdeen is it's one of the only cities on the west coast of America that has actually lost population over the last 100 years. At the turn of the century, it was a booming town, and it was booming because primarily the fishing industry was big, the logging industry, and the natural resources. By the time Kurt was born, those jobs were going away, and the unemployment rate was one of the highest in Washington.
It's always been a hard luck town. It's always been a town where you had to scrabble to make it, and it's never had any luck. Its industry has always been declining. I mean, I've been watching that town's industry decline forever. The city fathers probably would wish that people like I wouldn't point that out, but if you drive through the town, you can see that.
Growing up in Aberdeen at that particular time, what was it, mid-70s, was good. It was good living. It was a good time. There was lots of work. But it's the late 70s is when things kind of went, the logging industry had sanctions imposed upon us. In the mid-80s, the fishing kind of went down, so the economy in Grays Harbor was at a really bad low. So there wasn't a whole lot of high-paying jobs, and that just led to, I think, introductions of kids experimenting with things to get away. Whether it be pot, cocaine, or other recreational drugs. Just a form of release to get away from the area, the economy.
And so you had a population there that was basically depressed economically and psychologically. You had angry people, out-of-work people, people hanging out in a dwindling number of taverns and bars downtown, just getting more angry and more frustrated, and there was never any hope on the horizon for that poor town.
Kurt grew up very poor. When he was born, his dad was working at a service station. He was making approximately $5 an hour. And this was not the kind of wage where you could support a family. And they struggled. And throughout his entire youth, his family struggled to pay their bills and pay their mortgage.
In 1969, Kurt's parents, Don and Wendy, bought their first family home on East 1st Street, Aberdeen. Contrary to the singer's portrayal of his early childhood, the young family had a poor but happy life, with Kurt the centre of his parents' attention.
Growing up in that period, in that part of town, what we would do for entertainment is it was undeveloped land at that time. If you go there now and look at it, there's a lot of development. But that time there was trees, fields, ponds. We lived right next to a river, the Wishkah River. We'd swim in there, we'd catch fish in there, play hide and seek, kick the can, have match fights, you know, just being kids. He was a gifted artist, even at an early age. I mean, he can draw anything. His personality was easy to get along with, very easy to get along with. Good sense of humor, you know, just having fun, you know, being kids.
You know, my analysis is the first 10 years of his life, for the most part, were fairly straightforward. He had parents that fought a fair amount, but he's not the only kid to grow up in that environment. He had a sister he loved. He was a very creative kid. He had a larger family that really embraced his creativity. He was a skilled artist even by the time he was in kindergarten.
Kurt was a good little boy. He was very, very happy. Always happy all the time. Beating on drums or something, on kettles, pots and pans. That's what we always thought he'd be. He was a drummer, not a guitarist. He's full of the devil. He's always doing something, drawing or something. He was quite an artist. Here's a picture he drew. The way he started these pictures was he come in the house one day. He was 6 years old, and he come in the house and he had a picture of Donald Duck that he drew. He says, "Look at Grandpa." He says, "I drew Donald Duck." Or I mean, of Mickey Mouse. He drew Mickey Mouse. And I said, "You didn't draw that, you traced it." He got about half mad. And he says, "You give me some paper and I'll show you." And so Grandma got him some papers out. And instead of drawing, he said, "I won't draw Donald," or he said, "I won't draw Mickey Mouse." He said, "I'll draw you Donald Duck." And that's what he done. He was 6 years old then. And then he drew this one here too, of Goofy. So I thought them were, I didn't know, my wife had saved them, I didn't know it. But she saved all of his stuff that he had here.
The time that I knew him, times were good. I mean, the family life were, you know, they were still married, you know, a functional family. But then after we grew apart into the middle years, the great junior high school years, is when he went to live in Monty. And obviously things, you know, kind of frazzled out from there. But any broken home, you know, it just depends on, you know, how it's picked up and ran with, you know.
His family life when he was young, I think it sometimes has been painted wrong in that we want to think of it as horrid, his entire existence, and that really wasn't the case. Even Cobain himself said a number of times, "I had a happy childhood," until at the point his parents got divorced.
In 1976, when Kurt was just 9 years old, Wendy Cobain demanded a divorce from Kurt's father, Don. The divorce caught the whole family by surprise and had a devastating impact on the young Kurt.
That really was the